Good morning, Steve Keefe with Coldwell Banker Skyward Realty, located in Lake Arrowhead, California, and also we're now in Big Bear, California. Today I'm going to be talking mainly about Lake Arrowhead, the Lake Arrowhead market, and where we were in 2018 versus where we're going in 2019. I'm going to pull together some statistics for you that kind of show where we were in 2017 and in comparison to 2018 to give you a kind of a trend of where we're going and what's happening in the market. I'm asked on multiple times a day, how's the market? And that's really the first question that I get when I run into someone as a member of the public. And it depends. The answer is it depends, because there's really three distinct separate markets. But if we look at the market overall, 2017 versus 2018, the number of transactions that happened in Arrowhead Woods went down slightly. It basically was the same. We saw 508 transactions in 2017. We had 506 transactions in 2018, so a slight decrease. I'll point out that we at Coldwell Banker Skyward Realty were involved in 56% of those transactions. We either represented the buyer or seller in 56% of those transactions. So our team is doing a great job as far as market share. But the market's flat as far as the number of transactions. What's interesting is days on market. We saw a decrease from 105 days on market on average to about 95 days. The highest sales price that we had in Lake Arrowhead Woods was $6,265,000 as opposed to $6 million in 2017. Our median price jumped from $413,500 to $440,000. So we saw a slight increase in the median price in Arrowhead Woods. Again, appreciation really depends on what sector of the market that you're in, and we can talk about that. List to sell ratio remained at 95%. So basically, of the properties that are selling, they're selling for about 95% of asking price. Sometimes the properties come on at a higher level and then they're reduced, but of the final asking price, they're going out very close to those numbers. If we look at the market, as I said before, it depends. When someone asks me, well, how's the market doing? Well, if you take a look at the different sectors of the market, let's say we break those down into 0 to 500,000, 500 to a million, and a million plus. If you take a look at the number of transactions in the 0 to 500,000 range, we had 305 of those 506 sales. So 60% of the transactions happened below $500,000. In the $500 to $1 million range, we had 169, which represents about 33%. In the $1 million plus, we had 32 transactions, which represents about 7%. So what we saw in 2018 versus 2017 is we saw more properties sell in that $500 to $1 million range than we did see in 2017. We saw about a 8% increase in the number of transactions in that 500 to a million range, and those were taken away from the other two ranges. In the under $500,000 market, properties are selling fairly quickly, 85 days on average. 500 to a million, it jumps up to about 115 days. And then over $1 million sales, you're looking at 142 days plus, with some of those properties selling with very much extended marketing time. So again, depending on where you fit into that price range is where the what the nature of that market is. And so if you're in the 0 to 500, a lot of activity, also a lot of transactions. There's probably not as much inventory in that range because it goes out quickly. And the reason for that is most of what we're selling, 70% of what we're selling, is second homes. And that's the sweet spot. Under $500,000 is typically what people are willing to pay for a second home in the San Bernardino Mountains. In the $500 to $1 million range, you're going to experience a little bit longer lead times. You need to be a little bit more aggressive on your price because there aren't as many buyers in that range. And then when you get up over $1 million, you're really talking about a specialized market where it's narrow. Like I said, we only had 32 sales that occurred over $1 million. And so there's not a whole lot of buyer activity in that range. So you need to be priced accordingly. It needs to be presentable. You definitely need to be more aggressive about how you position that property in the marketplace. The second question that I get asked frequently is, when is the recession coming? When is the bubble going to happen? When are things going to burst? And this is asked of me by buyers as well as sellers to understand what's going on in the marketplace. And there's a lot of national buzz and media hype about what's going on with regard to the recession. Is it right around the corner? There's a lot of political stuff that's circulating to indicate that maybe the market is in trouble. The initial information that we received on that predicted that maybe 2020 was going to be the year that we saw a contraction or a recession in the marketplace. And I don't like to use the word recession. What I like to use is economic slowdown, because that's really what it is. A recession is defined as an economic slowdown for 2 quarters in a row. And unfortunately, in the last recession, back in 1998, remember that, when the market had a 30% correction, we saw a significant correction in real estate values during that transition. And so people equate a economic slowdown or quote recession as equivalent to a crash of the market, the real estate market. And I'll point out that the 4 previous recessions, we actually saw values go up on property. Okay, we saw property values increase. So it's not always the case. There were some special things that happened back in the 2007, 2008 with regard to equity positions. I don't want to get into that today because it's relatively complicated, but rest assured that it's unlikely that we will see this huge crash that we saw back in 2008. Yes, we will see things slow down. That is natural. That has to happen. There's no way that we can go at this crazy pace. And I'll point out that I said earlier that we actually didn't see an overall increase in the number of transactions. We as a company did, but we did not see in the market an overall increase in the number of transactions. So as far as a bubble, as far as a crash, most of the indicators are now pushing that off even further into 2021. Realistically, I don't anticipate that we're going to see the huge market correction that we saw before, when we saw in 2006, 2007, 2008, because there just aren't the same economic situation, there aren't the same economic factors in play that there were during that time period. So yes, you're hearing that there may be a slowdown, likely there will be, but I don't anticipate it affecting us in the way that some people are projecting. So don't freak out about that. Bottom line is that the market is very strong right now, and I expect it to continue to be strong for at least the next 24 months. The third thing that I'm asked frequently is, I'm thinking about selling my property, I'm thinking about putting it on the market, I'm going to hold off until the springtime. How can I capitalize on the market? How can I do the very best I can? And there's a couple things that you need to remember when you're putting your property on the market. First of all, positioning is critical. 50% of the homes that go on the market that are listed in the Lake Arrowhead market don't sell. Okay, only 50% of the properties actually end up selling in our market. And it has to do with the phenomenon that if you're in Huntington Beach and you put your property on the market, what's happening? You're moving. More than likely you're moving. In Lake Arrowhead, because most of what we're selling here and most of the properties that we have are second homes, there's a phenomenon that happens where sellers decide, well, okay, I'll put my property on the market, or gee, I'd like to sell it, but I'll only sell it for X. They don't have to sell it. They're not moving. And thus, there isn't a huge motivation for them to position the property correctly to the marketplace. Just because they want X for it doesn't mean that there's going to be a ready, willing, and able buyer out there to pay them what they want for it. So what ends up happening is we end up finding that a lot of properties that get listed don't sell. It has to be compelling. Okay, the homes that are compelling are selling. And what I mean by that is either there's something about it, monster lake view, great proximity to the lake, short walk to the dock, charmer, absolutely adorable, cute, clean. All of those things are compelling factors, and we see that when a property comes on the market that has one of those qualities, there's a buzz about it. And as long as it's positioned correctly, it sells. What about all those properties that aren't compelling? What about all those properties that don't necessarily have the buzz? What's going to be compelling about those? What's compelling about those is price. Okay, at the end of the day, price cures all when it comes to a property that may have been neglected, may have been not taken care of, maybe on an access road, has horrible access. Maybe there's some other factor that comes into play with that property and what makes that property compelling. So when you as a seller look at your property and you're talking with your realtor about the property, the question that you ask is, what's compelling about this property? And if there isn't anything that is really compelling, then you know that you need to be much more aggressive regarding price. The last factor is make sure that you list your property with a quality brokerage and a quality agent. Choosing the wrong agent will cause a situation that maybe the property won't be shown, you won't get the exposure that you need in order to get the eyeballs on the property. It is very important for you to choose the right person to represent you and to market your property and create the exposure for it. Make sure that there's a buzz about it. Because if you choose the wrong agent and they just put it out on the market and they don't do what they should do to represent you, the chances of you selling for the price that you want or need is difficult. So please do make sure that you evaluate your options and choose the correct brokerage. I would suggest Coldwell Banker Skyward Realty is the correct brokerage and the correct agent, which we have a lot of really good agents that work here under our roof. So the last thing I want to touch on is what's going to happen in 2019. And because it's the beginning of the year, that question gets asked almost as much as what are your New Year's resolutions. So here's my stab at it. Bottom line is for 2019, if you look at 2017, 2018, the numbers were very, very similar. We saw more expensive homes sell. We saw it creep up into that $600,000 range in 2018 versus 2017. I would anticipate that we'll probably have a very similar year. We didn't see a huge increase in the number of transactions. We as a company saw about a 10% increase in the number of sides and transactions that we did. So we outpaced the market. But overall, the market has been very steady. And there's nothing that would indicate that we would not continue with that same level of activity. As far as appreciation, I think if you divide the market at, let's say, 700 to 750, and you look at the properties below that range, because of the number of sales, because of the number of activity, the number of transactions that are happening in that range, we're flushing through more of that property, and we'll see probably a 4 to 5% appreciation level, which is what we've seen over the last few years. Anything over 750, unlikely there will be any appreciation whatsoever. We're just not seeing enough inventory get flushed through. The price appreciation has to do with the number of transactions that are happening and the demand in the marketplace. And we just are not seeing at those higher levels the same level of demand that we're seeing at the lower end of the range. I anticipate 2019 will be a very good year. It's going to challenge the real estate community to rise to the occasion and take advantage of new technologies so that we can stay on the cutting edge. We've worked very hard to do that and anticipate that we're going to benefit from that, and we're going to see more and more business in the coming year. As we saw this last year, we saw our market share increase significantly over 2017's numbers in 2018. So I'm anticipating a good year. If you're considering putting your property on the market and selling, absolutely, it's a good time to get the property on the market, especially now. People don't think that we sell much during the winter months when in fact we really do. We sell almost as much in the winter as we do in the summer months. And it is to the seller's advantage because they end up not having as much competition. You have a lot of people hold their property off the market until the spring. So definitely a good time. I would anticipate if you want to maximize value, 2019 might be your year to do that. Get your property on the market. Let us get it done for you. And we hope that you have a wonderful 2019. Please contact us if there's anything we can do to help you with your real estate related needs. And also, if you have any questions, if there's anything you want to know specifically about your property or the market, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks. Have a great one.